Hey everyone, Ryan Young, Kama Jiu-Jitsu. Just kind of sitting out here, decided to work outside today. It's a nice spring day and very sunny, no clouds in the sky. Just thought I'd get it done. Anyway, just thought I'd kind of comment on a couple things today. You know, one of the things that I've frequently talked about was the whole belting system. And, you know, I think that with the proliferation of jiu-jitsu, especially with bringing kids on, not that I don't want kids to learn jiu-jitsu, they need to. Both my kids are learning it, and I'm teaching a bunch of other kids as well. But one of the things that we do is that we condition our kids to get belts and get rewards with every step to keep them motivated, keep them interested. And on the one hand, I do understand that and expect that, and I do feel that that works sometimes. But with something that has to do with achievement, you can't just have time in as your achievement. Just because you show up for class doesn't mean that you should be getting anything. You have to earn it. And I had a particular student who would show up for class without fail twice a week, and she would just play. And she wasn't, it's not as if she was a young kid. You know, she was, I don't know, 5th grade. And we usually don't take too many kids that are under 2nd grade. In fact, 2nd grade is usually our cutoff for teaching children, only because it's hard to run a class and have them expect to learn stuff when they're younger than that. They're really just focusing on unicorns and butterflies and rainbows at that time. But when they get a little older, they can focus. And with jiu-jitsu, unlike some other martial arts where you just line them up and just get them to yell something and get them to throw a punch and a kick, you know, straight punch, straight kick. I understand that those are stages to getting them to do the more exotic stuff. But with jiu-jitsu, you have to teach them how to forward roll, you have to teach them how to backward roll, you have to teach them how to shrimp, you have to teach them how to stand up and base. A lot of stuff that we teach, it's just a little easier and they learn a lot faster if you pick them up a little bit later. But you know, this one particular child, elementary school kid, was wondering why she never got any advancement, never got even a stripe on her white belt. And it was because she didn't learn anything. And try as I might, you know, a lot of it had to do with a discipline problem. She was a good kid, but she just wasn't used to being told what to do. Her parents really let her kind of do what she wanted to, which I'm not saying it's not a valid way to raise a kid, but as far as learning jiu-jitsu in my class, it just made it very tough. And you know, whereas other schools, you know, had they had her around, you know, they would have, in fact, I think she was at a Taekwondo school prior, and she was getting promoted. And she didn't remember any. I asked her to show me what she learned in Taekwondo school, and she didn't really know anything. So, which basically means she got tick marks on a card for attendance, and then got promoted based on that. And you know, one of the things that the IBJJF has done is they've changed the whole kids belt system, and we're still traditional in that we have white, yellow, orange, green. They can earn a yellow as early as 8 years old, they can earn an orange as early as 10 or 11 years old, and they can earn a green as early as 13 years old, and then there are 3 stripes on each one. So it kind of works out to, you know, if a kid starts at age 7, which, you know, later 7, maybe get to 8, you know, it works out to about 3 to 6 months if they do everything they're supposed to for each stripe on their belt. However, because different kids attend class with different frequency, it's hard to kind of gauge it like that. And I don't really, and in fact, I don't at all. I don't even count how many times a particular person, let alone kid, attends class with the thought of, you know, oh, they're due for a promotion. And it just comes down to ability. And some kids just pick it up a lot quicker than others, as do some adults. But my thought is that if you start kids with that advancement mentality in mind, where if they just show up, they'll get advanced, then when they become adults, then they kind of expect the same thing. We don't do stripes on white belts for adults, as an example, and I've awarded a blue belt as quickly as 4 months and as long as, I don't know, 2.5 years. And that's just really just based on, we have a set curriculum that you have to know, And once you get all the boxes checked off, then it's time. And you know, most of it is, part of it is subjective, but part of it, a big part of it is objective with regard to at least a blue belt and having a curriculum. It doesn't make any sense for me to have somebody who shows up and they show up to class 200 times and they know nothing, but yet because they came to class 200 times, they get a blue belt, versus somebody who showed up 200 times and learned everything, for me to have them be on the same track. It doesn't make sense to me, at least, but I see from a business perspective why a school might do that. You know, if you've got 300 students, how can you possibly know how each one is progressing? You kind of don't, if your systems are not in place to deal with that. So that's really just my little take for today. It doesn't matter what it is with regard to your belt. Your belt it should be an achievement of what you know, not for how long you've been in. I've come across black belts who've been training for 12, 13, 14 years, and they get destroyed by a blue belt training for 2 years. You know, how is that? Well, if you watch how they train, the black belt knows a lot more stuff, but he doesn't know the basics to the degree that that particular blue belt that beat him knows it. It's not uncommon for me to come across even purple belts who've been training for 6 years get destroyed by a blue belt who's been training for a 1.5 years, or have a brown belt who's been training for 10 years come in and can't even submit a blue belt who's same age, same size, and who's been training for a 1.5 years. There really should be no reason for that. That brown belt should be a little more proficient. And it's not as if that blue belt was underbelted. I mean, he was training for a 1.5 years or 2 years. I mean, what belt should he be? He knew the curriculum that he needed to know. I mean, there's still a whole lot more to learn into purple, brown, and then into black belt, but he knew what a blue belt should know. You know, that's the only thing I can think of to explain why that type of situation happens, where a person of a lower belt will be able to beat an upper belt, and that kind of explains why it was pretty common to see a Gracie family member back in the, let's say, the late 90s, around 2000, a Gracie family member who might have been training as long as a non-Gracie family member, similar belt, and the Gracie family member goes and destroys the other person. I think it's because the Gracie family would hold a higher standard for their family members than they would a non-family member, where they would make sure that their family member knew those basic techniques and knew them well, and provided them a lot of opportunity for repetition in those core techniques before teaching them something new. I don't know if any of you other old school people who were training under Elio's sons directly, like I was, I don't know if any of you remember that whole time when the Brazilians that were non-Gracie members from other schools would come into the US and they'd be showing all this new jiu-jitsu stuff, and a lot of us students of Elio's sons would be thinking, man, these guys are holding back, you know, they're not teaching us all this stuff. And I admit I was one of them, and I really thought that there was a conspiracy to keep Americans from ever earning the black belt. I thought it was, and I believed other people, rightly or wrongly, but I believed other people who said that Horian Gracie, Howson Gracie, or whatever would never award, at least not willingly, a belt above purple or brown belt. And of course, I knew that there were American black belts, but you know that you know, the fact that should have alone changed my mind, but it didn't. You know, stupid me back in those days. But you always thought in the back of your mind that they were hiding stuff from the Americans or the non-Gracie family members, you know, versus themselves. And I asked Professor Dave about this a while ago, and other people asked him as well. I think Budo Jake might have asked him in his interview whether he thought the Gracies were hiding stuff, and Dave said no. And I tell my students as well, I said, I'm not hiding anything from you. Sorry, I have an alert here I'm trying to get rid of. I tell all my students that it's not that I'm trying to hide something from you. It's that, sorry, this is annoying me, excuse me, got a window on my phone. It's not I'm trying to hide anything from you, it's just you're not ready for it. And when you're ready for it, I'll teach it to you. So that needs to be the mentality But anyway, just it's a long rant on belts. So hopefully this works for you. This helps you understand the mentality of where somebody like we come from when teaching our students. All my students know it, at least they should. Nobody ever asks me for belts or why they haven't gotten a certain belt, and this should explain it all to you. Anyway, have a great day. Happy training. Bye.